Hello, welcome to the latest episode of the Vietnam Weekly podcast. This is Mike Tatarski, back after a much longer than intended break. It's been a while in between episodes for a variety of reasons, but happy to be back. And my guest today is Thao Lam, the executive director of the LIN Center for Community Development. She's a colleague of Kelly Vaugh, who was on the podcast a few months back during lockdown. So Thao has a lot of experience in the kind of NGO, charity, community development world here in Ho Chi Minh City and Vietnam more broadly. So I kind of followed up on some of what I talked about with Kelly a few months ago in terms of, what community needs are after now we're out of lockdown. But obviously there's still a lot of people and a lot of organizations that need help. So she talked about some of the big challenges in developing kind of a sustainable network of charity and aid for development. Talked about what's been going on since lockdown, and she just has a lot of really smart things to say. She's very experienced in this field, so I hope you learn a lot from this. Let's get to my chat with Thao. I'm here with Thao Lam from the LIN Center. So Thao, thank you for joining me.
Hi, Michael. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah.
No problem. So just to start, do you want to tell listeners, I already introduced you briefly, but who you are and what you do?
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Thao, or you can call me Thao Lam, and I am the executive director at LIN Center for Community Development, a local nonprofit based in Ho Chi Minh City. And our mission is to strengthen the community philanthropy ecosystem by advocating, connecting, and providing resources for local nonprofit organizations, donors, and volunteers to contribute towards sustainable development in Vietnam. Yeah, so that's basically what we are doing. Yeah.
Okay.
And
I mean,
so a little bit of my background. I have more than 12 years experience in the nonprofit sector and community development. Prior to Lean, I had 7 years of financial management experience in the nonprofit sector and also was a university lecturer in business finance. So um, let's say I believe that every individual is capable of making our world a better place, and this belief has inspired me to commit my professional life to the community development sector. Yes, so that's a bit of myself.
Okay, well, that's great. That's a great mission or thing to live by as well. So, I mean, you gave this, well, you kind of answered a little bit of this question already, but so you've done a lot in nonprofits and that sort of thing. But you know, what kind of work or what kind of subjects have you really focused on?
So let's say so basically, we offer capacity building services and
Mm,
connects financial and non-financial resources to non-profit organization in its network, in
mm,
Lean Network. And we also facilitate education and information sharing among the philanthropic community.
mm. Okay.
For corporations, we provide advisory services to those who are looking to grow their impacts in Vietnam. So let's say what we focus is supporting the local grassroots nonprofits through first capacity strengthening of organizational management and development, and secondly providing and connecting financial and non-financial resources to them, especially given the challenging situation due to the COVID-19. Yeah. I also would like to share a quite new activity that we wanted to focus more. This is raising awareness about philanthropy, nonprofit sector, social impact to the public and business
Mm,
sectors. We
mm,
have launched a channel named You Impact. Um, the channel is to inspire people and to provide useful and relevant contents to individuals and organizations who are interested in volunteering and creating positive impacts in Vietnam.
mm. Okay, that's great. So building off that, I have a question. So in recent years in Vietnam, we've seen after typhoons or something like that, or during the COVID. I mean, it's still ongoing, but during lockdown, for example, people volunteering to help. I remember after the typhoons in central Vietnam last year, a lot of people went to those provinces to deliver food or other aid to people. Is that a newer concept in Vietnam, like going to volunteer or volunteering during a crisis, or has that been around for a long time?
I think the Vietnamese have a cultures of giving for a very
Mhm.
very long time ago.
Mhm.
We have been very willing to give, but I think people still very focused on charity work with very short term impact. Yeah.
Mm.
So let's say during the typhoon or the pandemic, I think all let's say almost community members willing to help.
Mhm.
But they almost of them put their effort in relief activities, not really development activities.
Mm.
Mm.
Right, I see. Okay. So also you kind of in giving your background, you talked about how, LIN Center works with both grassroots organizations and, bigger kind of the business sector. So those are kind of two different things. But so in your experience, over the years, how have you seen grassroots organizations here kind of change?
I think the COVID-19 hit hard on sectors, right, including the nonprofit sectors. And in our sector, the grassroots, the challenge that the grassroots organization have to face even bigger. Because they have a very limited resource. So when the pandemic happened, um, the economy has been hit hard. So it's more challenging for them to leverage, resource from domestic markets or even like international to maintain and continue their work. And also, it's very challenging for them to, let's say, to meet and to support their communities because due to the lockdown and social distancing, it's right challenging for them to meet their beneficiary face to face.
Sure,
So
sure.
I think, yeah, I think the grassroots is facing uh, a very big challenge for their assistance and their mission. So that's why, in let's say we at Lean, we are a partner of them, and we always want to support them. Uh, by the way, we connect the resource from business, from donor, and even volunteers to them.
Okay. Um, so you mentioned lockdown, and actually, that it was during lockdown that I talked to Kelly Va, your colleague or former colleague, I guess. So she kind of talked about what was happening, when the outbreak was at its worst, what people were like going hungry. You couldn't leave home, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So lockdown's over. Here in Ho Chi Minh City, at least, life is relatively normal. Cases are kind of going up again, but you can go to restaurants and cafes and all of that. But as you said, it's still difficult for grassroots organizations, especially. So, what are some of the big, what do these organizations need, and what do the people that they help need at this point as well?
You know that a few months ago during the lockdown, right? I think that was such a challenging time for people in Ho Chi Minh City, especially for vulnerable groups, the grassroots organization beneficiaries. They maybe workers or street vendors who comes from many provinces around Ho Chi Minh City, and many of them lost their jobs. They couldn't afford food or daily needs for their families. People in the quarantine areas were lacked of basic needs, and the lockdown also affected the accessibility to health care. of COVID-19 victims and other patients, including old people or people with disabilities and children, etc. So let's say during the lockdown, the charity work would focus on emergency relief, right? From an informal statistics survey that LIN has been conducting, there was at least 120 community-based volunteer groups supported people in need in Ho Chi Minh City and Bình Dương, Đồng Nai province from May to October this year. And their popular activities were providing foods and essentials to people in need, portable oxygen tanks, or free transportation and ambulance for COVID-19 patients. Other support went to frontline people like protective equipments and clothes to doctor or nurses. And now, like you said, lockdown is over, but let's say the end of COVID-19 is still unknown.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the support to the community should be more sustainable and more long term and strategic. Given the hard consequence of the pandemic on the economy and society, we need to find a way for these vulnerable groups to get over, to recuperate from the crisis, and step by step get back to new normal lives. So
Hmm.
I think now this is the time for government, NGOs, non-profit businesses should put their efforts in community development, philanthropy, not just charity, such as economic empowerment. For example, microfinance program for street vendors and workers for them to come back to work
Hmm.
and earn money. For example, another example would be comprehensive programs to support thousands of orphans due to the pandemic, right? You know that.
Right. Hmm.
And healthcare services or health consultancy, especially mental health.
Mm.
Yes, and other issues, they always exist regardless COVID. For example, climate change, LGBT, gender equity, equal education, accessibility to people. Yeah. Mm. So
Yeah.
I
That.
yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, like we now it's the time to be back with normal life and to reevaluate the community issue, society issue, economic issue, and we need like more long term solutions for them. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that obviously that's a very good point. So, I mean, now that lockdown is again over, kind of, quote unquote, relative life has resumed. Are people still paying attention? I know LIN Center, you and your colleagues are paying attention to these issues, but you mentioned climate change, LGBT rights, gender equality. Those are obviously incredibly important. But people have a tendency to pay attention to like what's
Yeah.
happening right in front of them. So obviously lockdown, everyone paid attention to that. Um, some of these other long term issues, it's difficult to kind of keep people interested, I guess. So are you seeing, is there still a lot of effort to address those in the general community?
Sorry, Michael, could
Yep.
you repeat the question again?
Yeah.
Like
So
the internet not really good.
yeah, sorry, I was rambling a bit. But you mentioned, climate change, gender equality, LGBTQ rights, obviously very important. Are you seeing, are a lot of people still focusing on those issues?
I mean, like because of the pandemic, it's happened and it hits hard on sectors and from individual to organizations, right? So it's like almost people have been focusing on the consequence made by the COVID,
Mhm.
but besides a lot of other community issues, they always exist regardless the COVID. Yeah, like climate change, LGBT,
Mhm.
gender equity. So I think now is the right time for us to come back with these issues too. This
Hmm.
issues in this solution too, because if we just we only focus on COVID-19 and let other issue go so far. So I think some years later, a lot of the issue would be will become bigger, right? And
Yeah,
it will affect like Harley, and their negative impact will be bigger in the
sure.
future. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So in your opinion, how do you so climate change, for example, we know it will be really bad. We don't know how bad. But it can be easy for people to kind of be like, well, I can't make any difference. It's huge. What should I even do? How do you keep people interested in trying to do something about it?
Honestly, because we are not working on climate change
Mm, sure.
specifically, but in general, I would say climate change is a very big topic, and it's a need the collaboration from cross sectors. For example, government, businesses, definitely, and of course NGOs. And there's a lot of things relating to climate change these days. We have the COP26 uh,
Hmm.
conference just happened several weeks ago, and Vietnam have some important commitment on climate change.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a very necessary action from the government. But I mean, in the term of these big issues, the collaboration, cross-sector collaboration, cross-sector partnership is very important and plays, let's say, important role. Yeah,
Hmm.
in the solutions. Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of cross sector, I mean, you mentioned earlier trying to get the business sector to support kind of grassroots organizations, either financially or in other
Not,
ways.
yeah.
Um, so how has business support for NPOs and NGOs changed? I know in the West it's common these days for corporations to at least talk about helping their communities. What's going on with that these days in Vietnam?
Yep. This is the fact that the business do the charity a lot, especially during the pandemic. Uh,
Hmm.
I think almost company they have philanthropic activities, and they donate a lot to the COVID fund of the government, and some NGO, NPO, or they had their own charity activities. But from our observation, I think the collaboration between the business community and the local nonprofit, the grassroots organization, is still very quick.
Mm.
And I think the key reason is about uh, they still like lack of trust, right?
Okay.
People, for example, these several months ago, you heard about like a celebrity could raise a lot of money, but people they feel like hesitate
Hmm.
to donate to the grassroots organization because they feel that they are not confident, they are not comfortable, uh,
Hmm.
and they don't know where the money, where their money come and go, let's say. So yeah, I think so. That's why, as I said earlier, that's why we wanted to do more in terms of raising awareness about philanthropy and non-profit sectors, social impact to the public. I think because of limited resource, the grassroots organization they don't have a chain to talk about themselves much to the public. They
Hmm.
don't have enough resource to invest in marketing and communication activities. That's why public don't know much, do not know much about them.
Hmm.
So that's the things Lin would like to do. Lin would like to promote them more to the public, so that the public know more about them, know more about the impacts that these grassroots organization can create, and from that, I think the trust can be increased, and we can strengthen the collaboration between the public, between the businesses, and the grassroots organization in Vietnam.
Yeah, that's interesting because I know the trust thing I've seen like during lockdown. A few times in my newsletter I shared links to local organizations that were helping where people could donate. But it was just like a bank transfer, which I know not everybody trusts. And I got a few emails where people said, do you know this money will be used for the right thing? And I had to just be like, well, I hope that, I mean, I think it will be, but I can't check. So, when how do you raise awareness of that? Like what channels do you use and what messages do you use?
The channel named You Impact. We have Facebook, YouTube,
Mhm.
podcast, and TikTok.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I we want to have useful and relevant, let's say, contents, but in the format, in some trendy formats, so that
Mm.
our contents can, easier to approach people. Yeah,
Sure,
but
sure.
in terms of non-profit and social impact, I think the contents mostly like are very academic
Mm.
and not easy to understand and
Mhm.
not interesting at all. So maybe that's the reason why people they search, they do the research on Google, but then they easily give up.
Right, right. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
TikTok would definitely be innovative for that. So, I mean, you've already mentioned. Obviously, we know the pandemic has been extremely difficult for so many people, including NGOs and other organizations. But kind of besides that, what are some of the bigger challenges you face in your work?
I think the more challenging things is about keep ourselves alive with planning, with
Mm.
plans, right? We have a plan, and then things happen very fast, and we cannot foresee, we cannot foresee what would happen in the next phase, and that's quite challenging for us. And of course, the most challenging things is about how to mobilize the resource to maintain and to continue our work. Yeah,
Hmm.
because a lot of our donors now they face challenges in their work too. So yeah,
Right.
and philanthropic activities are not their top priorities, so they are easy to be cut down. Yeah,
Mm.
when crisis happen.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, a lot of businesses obviously or a lot of industries are really still being impacted. Um, so if somebody's like, I know LIN Center is not a charity itself, but if a listener, is listening to the show and wants to help out in some kind of way, uh, what could they do?
Yeah, because our mission is to promote a community philanthropy ecosystem in Vietnam to contribute to a sustainable development in Vietnam. So we do hope to have more and more community members engaged in philanthropic activities to build the community resilience and engage with our activity. So please follow us on our new channel, Youth Impact, and also LIN platform to to know more, to understand more about nonprofit sector and their works in Vietnam, and
Mhm.
how to create impact, how to give them a hand. Yeah.
Okay, I'll make sure to include those links as well in the episode description. Um, so I just have one or two more questions. I mean, so COVID, like you said, we don't know when it will end or what the end will look like. There's this new variant that we don't really know what it will do yet. A lot of unknowns. But do you worry that COVID will just continue, beyond the obvious public health issues with that? But do you worry that it will continue to take kind of all of the charity attention, or really just take up all the oxygen, so to say, for charity activities in the future?
Um, from my personal view,
Mhm.
I think there would be two contrary trends.
Mm.
The first one is that a lot of organizations maybe they cannot continue with their work, and maybe they have to shut down their activities because it's too challenging for them to mobilize the resource and also to do their work, right? But another trend is that we can see that the pandemic um, have created a lot, a lot more social and economic issues, right?
Mhm.
So now I think more people need help, so
Mm.
that's why I think some other um, organizations will assess or expand. They have to expand their work to, let's say, to meet the community needs. So
Mhm.
I can see two contrary trends like that. Yeah.
Right, right. Okay. Yeah, I suppose mental health, for example, will probably be, which I know historically has been kind of under discussed here in Vietnam, but I imagine that will become more and more important moving forward.
Yeah, and also yes, for the organization, if they can survive and maintain their work, they have to find ways to adapt with the new normal. Maybe they have to restructure, they have to reevaluate community needs to do their work better. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I guess kind of last question. I mean, is there anything else you wanted to add on this topic, or maybe these past 6 months have been eventful, to say the least. Was there anything really memorable in your work that's happened? I mean, I'm sure there's multiple examples, but anything you really want to share?
I think that's all from me. But I feel very proud of our teamwork during the lockdown in terms of supporting the grassroots organizations. So a lot of challenge, a lot of difficulties, but we can get over and continue our work because we do think that our work do fill a gap, in the community. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that, and of course, we need, the support from all of you. Um, Everyone should join a hand with us to build the community resilience. And
Mm.
together we can, let's leave no one behind.
Right, right.
Mm.
Well, it's a great message to end on. So Thao, thank you again for joining me. I was interested to hear what's going on with LIN Center and your work and everyone you're working with in the community as well. So thank you for sharing that. And like I said, I'll share the links to your various channels. And yeah, I look forward to keeping in touch and hearing more about your work in the future.
Thank you, Mike. Very happy to share about our work about lean, and I enjoy the conversation so much. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.